Kyrie, you think that they're living in a fantasy when you literally play a game for your salary. And these same media that promoted you, that highlights your greatness, that help drive the interest for your brand, that puts you in line to get $50 million, you get upset because they're criticizing you. That's how the machine works. Do you not understand that this is the system that you wanted to sign up for because it is enriching you? That's why you're this offseason going to try to get every penny that you can get. You know, if you're so above it, then just the hell with it all and just
let me put you on
game. But as much credit as I really want to give to the Celtics, I also just have to say that the Nets were such a huge disappointment. And you just look at all the seeds that were planted that they are now reaping. I mean, Kyrie is a religious guy, so you reap what you sow. You don't need a coach. Word? All right.
Kevin can be the coach. I can be the coach. We don't really need
Of course. You know, you don't have chemistry. You don't have your legs. That 39-point performance in game one seemed to be all he had in the gas tank. And I'm not going to blame it on Ramadan, but I'm also not going to say that helped. You know, being in a fasted state prior to a playoff basketball game in which you're going to play 40 minutes because there's no depth, because your salary is so high, and where you have to be an offensive focal point for your man Kevin, who is struggling because they're picking him up half, you know, the full length of the court because Celtics got a bunch of young guys. And, you know, funny enough, the Nets almost pulled out some of these games with their veteran guile and just the magnificence of both Kyrie and Kevin combined. But at the end of the day, those guys didn't show up when they needed them the most. You have guys like Goran Dragic, Bruce Brown, Andre Drummond, Nick Claxton, just giving it their all, giving it their heart, and not getting help from their superstars, you know, during the last 3 games of the series. So just a huge disappointment by the Nets, man. And just it just befuddles, you know, the mind, because I had the Nets winning in 7, and they just said, they took my plans and said, shh.
I'm really happy this happened. This helped me catch up on points, which we'll discuss in a second before we get into predictions. But I echo your sentiments on all of the. I guess you covered the basketball side of it, of course. The Nets, if Kyrie and KD aren't generational with this version of the roster, then they're just not going to succeed. They got a bunch of corpses on the roster that were latching on to the championship hopes that just aren't going to be able to contribute right now. And that just is what it is. That's part of kind of the whole, not that there's anything bad about it, but the whole ring chasing thing. Like, if there's that many guys on your roster that are chasing that, they're not going to be able to contribute when it matters the most, to be honest. So it's just, that's part of the game. That's part of
you had Blake Griffin huffing and puffing coming out of nowhere. Man, he had no runs this whole season. And Steve Nash is like, hey, come in, 4th quarter playoffs, give us some energy, be a spark plug. He's like, all right, coach. You know, like,
he doesn't have much left, man, and it's not it's not the best decision. I guess on outside of basketball, it's really curious what's going on in Brooklyn. You've got Ben Simmons, who looked at how the series was going, I think, and based that upon whether or not he was going to play. He's kind of put a lot of people in the position right now where it's difficult to question him. It's difficult because once you bring mental health into it, once you bring because that's a conversation that, of course, is valid and needs to be had, because, you know, mental health is not discussed enough. So when you bring that into the conversation, it's really hard to just look at that objectively and say, like, hey, you want some bullshit. Which is likely what's going on, because, like, I think there were so many signs that pointed towards him playing in the series, and then the reports come out that he's likely going to play in game 4, 5, or 6. And then when it's a critical moment, he's not there. Like, I don't know. I think that the team would have respected it a lot more if he were able to at least give it a shot. if he were able to say like, all right, let me just give y'all 5 to 10 minutes and see what I can do. And then, all right, my back isn't with it right now. Like, I can't give you anything. And then that was it. I think
like
your team
Pippen in game 6, against the Jazz, like, his back went out and he still went out there and gave it his all, at least to be a distraction.
I think just that's kind of emblematic of what's going on with the team overall. I think that he should have played. It's hard to say that when you're not in his shoes, but I think that you have to say that he probably should have played. He probably should have given it a shot. I don't think it's a good look. It puts a lot of doubt into what he's going to look like next season, because he's already saying he's not ready to play. And I think a lot of it has to do with the environment of the playoffs. So I'm thinking he's trying to just set himself up to play against like Detroit or something in like the 4th game of the season. And that's where he'll feel the most comfortable. But that really does call into question whether or not like he'll be ready when the time is the most important, like where the pressure is at the highest this time next year. Like, can you count on Ben Simmons to really come through for you? And there are a lot of questions surrounding that based on this entire year. And then, of course, you've got Kyrie Irving, who you have to question if he's going to be available and ready and willing to perform when the time is the most essential, because Kyrie hasn't really played many full seasons in his career due to injury. He didn't play this full season for reasons that have been much discussed. And it kind of annoyed me in a way because like he's kind of treating the vaccine thing like there was nothing that could have been done. Like he's talking about it in a way where he's saying like, oh, like, yeah, unfortunately I just missed half the year. And he's just saying it in a way that's like, yeah, I tore my ACL, but like, no, you just didn't get vaccinated. So it's like, it's just the way that he's talking about it. And then of course you have the quote with him just talking about like how, oh yeah, after this season, me, Kevin, Joe Tsai and Sean Marks are just going to sit down and really govern the future of this franchise. I'm paraphrasing, but that's essentially what he said. And it's like, you miss half the season. How are you governing the future of a franchise? So it just comes off really toned. I think Kyrie's a nice guy, but some of the things he says sometimes just come off like really, really tone deaf. And KD is not getting any younger. He's still one of the best players in the NBA, but you have a certain window of him being at his best. So it's like, there's more questions and answers for the Nets going forward, but it's media fodder. It's just all entertainment and fluff and drama all over there, and there's not really much else. I'm curious to see what the hell they're going to do going into next season, because also, before you get to your point, there's also the other elephant in the room, which is the fact that Kyrie is up for a 5-year, nearly $250 million extension next year, or contract. So it's like, are you going to pay Kyrie Irving nearly $50 million to play for you over the next 5 years?
Yeah. And for me, for my taste, my answer is it's no. But I'm not a basketball personnel executive. I am also not in the position to say what you would do with a Kyrie Irving, because you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Is he going to go somewhere else? I wonder, because
I doubt it.
His
value is so low right now.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of teams would just be like, bro, like, do you not see who you are? Yes, you're talented, but why would I trust you with my franchise, with the things that you say? He's a distraction for all the wrong reasons. You know what I mean? I was talking to my cousin a couple years ago, and he was like, yeah, man, like, you don't understand what it's like to play alongside LeBron. And because we were talking about, the whole Kyrie wanting to get traded out of Cleveland, and how that, wasn't really a good move. And I was like, I don't know what it's like to play around LeBron. I mean, do you know what it's like to play around Kyrie? To have a man who talks about, the earth being flat and seemingly making himself a head coach at his whims, or a general manager, executive at his whims. And it's like, the world doesn't work like that, my friend. And this Kyrie stuff has been so distracting that I literally forgot that Ben Simmons Ben Simmons' camp said that he had a mental block for him to play, and that it was creating a stress trigger point for his back issues.
That was wild.
When I saw that tweet, I almost dropped my phone. I'm like, what? A mental block is causing a trigger to your back? Like, oh, okay, so that's how the body works. Got it. Got it. Ben Simmons has made a lot of business decisions, and you definitely smell a little bit of BS coming from him. And I know that there's a lot of people that continue to defend him, and I defend him to a certain degree as well. But at the end of the day, we live in a results-driven league, and when you get paid all this money, there's going to be expectations had of you. So it's only fair and right that we ask you to play the games that you are contractually obligated to play, and not come up with lame excuses to get your way and to want to get traded or whatever the case is. I think he was just out of shape, to be honest. And I think that he doesn't want to be.
What were you doing? Like, what were you
exactly
doing?
nothing. The same way that Kyrie was out of shape, because Kyrie gave you one good game and he couldn't come back later because he just didn't have the legs. Like he said, he was gassed. Ben Simmons probably just didn't want to get exposed because he knows how detrimental that will ultimately be towards his brand. Even though it probably would have been, he would have gotten a standing ovation. And it just shows you like the lack of pride that anybody really has for the Brooklyn Nets, man. Like it's just a franchise that happens to be in New York, but it's not the marquee New York franchise. And when you see things that happen like this, they're the Clippers of the East. You know what I mean? You're just little dog. Even if the bigger franchise is struggling and looks terrible and doesn't have a bright future, the Nets at their best is still not going to be good enough to take over New York. Kyrie has this firestorm of tweets that I wanted to react to, where he says on April 28th, a lot of these media corporations make their money by dragging Black, African, indigenous community heroes. They thrive off of it. Then they sell it back to us, having a hand-selected person or group of people spark controversy about them for the world to see. He goes on to say in another tweet, just watch all of the people who wake up every day and report about people's lives on TV and social media and then profit off them. Then they justify their jobs by saying they get paid to say how they feel. Shoulder shrug emoji. LOL, it's like these people live in a fantasy. Really I almost called him Kanye. Oh my goodness.
I mean, Freudian slip if there ever was one right there, bro.
Yeah. Kyrie, you think that they're living in a fantasy when you literally play a game for your salary. And these same media that promoted you, that highlights your greatness, that help drive the interest for your brand, that puts you in line to get $50 million, you get upset because they're criticizing you, and you think that they're criticizing the rest of the athletes who get paid to, and who has their profiles magnified because you have all these TV personalities that talk about ours. That's how the machine works. Do you not understand that this is the system that you wanted to sign up for because it is enriching you? That's why you're this offseason going to try to get every penny that you can get. If you're so above it, then just the hell with it all and just play one-on-one in an empty gym without anyone else there to view you, so that your art form can be expressed to its fullest without anybody disturbing you. But no, that's not the route you want to take. You want to get paid. You want to have sneakers. You want to be a successful entrepreneur or just figure in sports and in entertainment. And so that's what comes with the territory. So you just kind of saying this, just this weird stuff, like this is how the machine works. Yeah, there's some not really good motives by some people in the media. Yeah, you have the naysayers just to strike up controversy, Skip Bayless. But besides them, this system is built for your success. And the fact that he can't see that or appreciate that and disparages the media is just really annoying, and just another example of him being tone deaf.
I hear you. I definitely normally side a lot of times with athletes and their tirades against the media, like a Marshawn Lynch, because I understand sometimes you get misquoted and they turn that against you, and it builds a distrust between the media and the players. But I just think it's tough to hear that coming from Kyrie sometimes, because he kind of, everything he says, it kind of comes off like, oh, you're not going to understand because like your third eye ain't open. Like that's basically where he seems to be coming from on a lot of these issues. So it's tough to take that without really looking at who it's coming from. So yeah, Kyrie, I think, is just an interesting personality. I do think that he's a good person, but I do think that a lot of that gets lost in some of the boneheaded things that he can say or do sometimes.
He's a self-made martyr and a self-made victim that no one asked him to be.
Yeah, you draw a harder line with Kyrie than I do, but yeah, I could see that as well. He's just a frustrating personality, but I think the Nets team overall, I think they're kind of the embodiment of him in a lot of ways. So they're going to continue to be talked about, but I'm sure we'll address them some more on the podcast, because we always feel like we've wrapped up the Nets at some point, but they always manage to come back into our lives. So they're probably the most interesting team to watch next year, to see how that experiment goes. Because Ben Simmons, who knows what he's going to look like next year. I mean, I hope for his sake that he's good, but if not, it'll be a story. So thanks for checking out this segment of the Put You On Game podcast, where we discuss everything from hoops to hi-hats.
Give us your thoughts on the video in the comment section, and you can also find the full podcast in the link in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content.